Today's chat is brought to you by, well, all of your support. Through the patronage you provide the Focus Fire chat team through Podbean's crowdfunding, we are able to provide you with the weekly podcast as well as the website and other aspects of Focus Fire chat. If you have any interest in becoming a patron of the FFC, please be sure to visit our website and click on the support link. Even a single dollar helps, and for those of you who are already patrons, thank you again for your generosity. You may have heard the whispers of guardians gathering in the shadows, exploring the mysteries of this world and the worlds which surround us. We are all in search of truth. Sometimes we need to focus that search, focus that fire. And so we come together. Join us. Join the discussion. Welcome to Focused Fire Chat. Welcome back for episode 130 of Focus Fire Chat, recorded live on May 11th over on twitch.tv/FocusFireChat. As always, I want to give a big shout out to our live chat here with us tonight. Thank you so much for joining us once again. Our topic for tonight's episode is going to be a look at gunsmiths. But first, let's run through a quick introduction of those on the show for tonight. As always, this is your host, Blue Crew 86. We also have the man who has been said has the voice of a flower, an individual who goes by many names and maybe even will stay awake for this episode, Justin Sane 0516. What guys do you have on for us tonight, Justin?
What? No, oh, sorry. Yeah, hey, what's up, guys? I'm going with Egon Smith. Come on, I got a chortle from Beard.
That was from Blue, actually.
That was Egon Smith.
Yeah, but here's your problem. You didn't tell me about the Twinkie.
My Twinkie? What Twinkie?
He doesn't know the reference.
Are you telling me you don't understand a Ghostbusters reference right now? Is that what you're telling me at the moment?
All I know is Do, Re, Mi, Egon.
No!
Look, that's one of the worst. Look, was Ghostbusters 2 the only thing you watched out of that series? Because if that's the case, and if you say the new one, then you're completely disqualified.
No.
Like, completely.
You managed to piss off both Beard and I in one fell swoop.
Look. I did see the first one, okay?
What? No, you change that right now. You get completely off the show right now. You go watch that. Like, I don't know what you're talking about right now. How are you alive? How are you a human being without actually watching that movie? What is going...
I said I did watch it. I said I did watch it, Beard.
Okay. Well...
The most appropriate time.
Go get a Snickers. Go get a Snickers, because you're not. I'm not. Whatever. Just go. Get out.
Just you know what? I'm just changing my name.
Yeah, I think so. You do not. You don't know about the Twinkie, and you can't tell me about the Twinkie. You do not deserve Egon in your name.
I'm changing my
Harold
name.
Ramis, God rest his soul.
Is he dead?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Oh God, is he dead?
That's it. I'm done.
Listen. It's over. I'm going to change my name to Lady Gunsmith Mombaso, and we're going to move on.
Oh my good God! Any drinks you earned at Guardian Con are over.
You're cantankerous. I was assured, Blue, that if I came back, I would be first among equals.
Wait, no.
It's actually now.
When was that ever assured?
In my contract.
Contract.
Man, he made you sign a contract? He just trusts us.
Shh. Anyways, let's move on. I feel like this is like the Infinity Gauntlet after Thanos snapped. Like, that's what this is right now. Like, I feel like it's done.
To speak, as Pin says in chat, to speak of Just Insane 0516 is to accept certain limitations. We are ill-equipped to understand an entity that defies simple causality. Let us accept these limitations and move along.
Let's move it along.
So next up, we have our own master of social media, the one and only Green-Eyed Music Lover. Green, I hope you're doing well. How has the week treated you so far?
You know, I don't even know how to answer that at this point.
It was going great. You can answer it like that.
I broke all the intros. That's apparently because I can't remember the significance of Twinkies.
I feel like I've been wiped all of a sudden.
Maybe reset perchance.
Oh God. Although, are resets a happy thing, or are they not?
I mean, as we found out, apparently it's because your brain finds out that you're inside of a frame, so you tell me.
Yeah. Oh, man. And rounding out the usual team, we do have the grizzly bearded cultivator of Spinfoil himself, Beard Grizzly. Beard, I'm afraid to ask, but how are you doing tonight?
Well, again, I was doing absolutely fantastic until that happened. All right, but seriously.
Oh, I remember the Twinkie now.
Oh, now we remember. You know what?
The real question is, did he get on Wikipedia?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Did he get on Wikipedia? Did he go watch it on YouTube real quick?
No,
please, YouTube, tell me about the Twinkie. For God's sake, tell me about the Twinkie before I lose all my drinks.
Do not type that into YouTube. Do not.
No, I would not do that. That's a really bad idea, probably.
Please, dear God, tell me about the Twinkie.
So yeah, I was going to say that it was great until Justin completely derailed it. Realistically, there was a lot of awesome things that kind of happened this week, but yeah, we had Warmind, of course, release, and I think overall that was pretty positive. We had Batman Ninja that came out, which completely flew under my radar that was released. And my God, that is just one of the best things that I think DC has ever produced, and it was all done by a fan-made thing, or all caused from a fan-made thing. And then my guilty pleasure of a Final Fantasy mobile game released Sephiroth this week, so I have nothing to complain about. You know, I'm totally good.
Except
for Justin.
Except for the Twinkie.
It's still
Except
good.
for the Twinkie.
It's fine.
First of all, you haven't lived until you've seen a Megazord made entirely of monkeys fight two Transformers.
Oh my God.
So.
Oh my God.
Batman Ninja.
I'm so confused.
Yes. No.
Oh, Batman Ninja. Okay.
If you are in any part of it's somewhat like liking of anime or Japanese culture or anything like that, if you want to just like laugh at the absurdity of something, Batman Ninja is perfect for it while still taking itself pretty seriously. It's wonderful.
Nice. Well, and finally, once again, in our esteemed seat of honor, we do have our dear friend PurpleChimera. Purple, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing okay. It's been quite a week. Lots of things to go through on Ishtar. The API has been filled, and I'm very happy.
I looked at the releases, and I'm like 80 plus. Oh, God, my next week is screwed.
It's so amazing. It makes me happy.
Purple's like, I know, it's awesome.
It's awesome.
Purple, as the archivist, is just like, yes, give me more.
All of the things, yes.
Yes.
Oh, man. All right, well, last week, we asked the community, which foundry did you like the best in regards to the aesthetics of their guns? So we got some responses in, and I'm going to hand it over to Green for that.
You know, it was actually pretty level-headed all the way through. No fights, surprisingly. Did get a little nasty when somebody mentioned that Amalon was the best because they're liquid guns.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Because
I figured if you want a
beakers-
water gun, it's fine. Whatever. To each their own. But, yeah, lots of people like Tex Mechanica. I'm surprised we didn't get more for Crux Lomar. I literally only had one person submit that, and that may just be because we don't have Gjallarhorn anymore.
Well, I'm going to say they're not as prevalently known, I guess you could say, anymore, because even most of our, I guess the only like Crux Lomar related thing is the Sparrow that still looks like what was it, the napalm firing one. Now I can't remember what the name of the
Dragon's
was.
Breath.
Dragon's Breath, thank you. Like that's the only thing that we have that's like even close to Crux Lomar relation as far as I remember. They almost seem like they've been like pushed almost completely out of it all.
I was going to say I was very surprised there wasn't a more groundswell of support for Nadir. But
there was none.
Yeah, I know, right? It's almost like it was the low point of the debate.
I was waiting for that one.
Somebody did mention Viced, which they're just like
boo snakes.
Yep.
I just like the color.
Yeah, Viced. I like.
It's not all snakes, Justin. It's also like other things that are poisonous, like spiders and such.
Right.
Oh, tell me more.
Yeah, I know. It's a wonderful topic. The other one that I didn't see much of throughout the week was Cassoid. I don't think anybody even mentioned Cassoid.
No one mentioned Cassoid. We had mentions for Amalon, Tex Mechana, and Suros were the three big ones.
And Suros, I'm not surprised with that one because that was the one that, I mean, Bungie's pushed Suros since before day one.
Right. Hawkeye did show up too.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to say that's the ones that I would have expected. The ones that we had that were basically the ones with the the armstay stuff. And then we also had Tex Mechanica, and that's mostly because, hey, we like Last Word.
I want Last Word back.
I want First Curse
too.
back. Everybody's like, I want Last Word. No, I want First Curse.
Both.
To go back, though, Crux only did rockets, didn't they? Did we have anything from Crux?
Did.
Yeah.
That wasn't...
No, they
because we had Truth, Gjallarhorn, and Dragon's Breath, right?
Wasn't there a rare?
Was there?
There was a rare a couple legendaries.
It wasn't the Baron, was it?
Was
the Baron one of them?
I forget.
I honestly didn't pay attention to most. I didn't use rocket launchers other than Hunger of Crota.
Gjallarhorn.
Yeah.
Well, see, I was a Mida runner, so I had my exotic already used up with Mida or Icebreaker.
We did have one like write-in that's not an official foundry.
I love it.
Mr. Infested Potato said, "Whatever foundry Rasputin runs."
The Valen Forge.
Oh no,
right?
Chargoon also wrote in.
Oh, did he write? Oh, he just wrote in, didn't he?
Yeah, just today.
Where's that one at? I don't have that one.
He was the one that said, he said, not sure if these count, but I like the chiclet guns from King's Fall. They look and sound organic, and the machine gun shoots fangs.
I want the machine gun back from that was DK.
Was it Quillum? Was it Dristan?
Terminus.
I thought it was Quillum's Terminus, wasn't it?
Well, the auto rifle or
the machine gun, the heavy machine gun.
Quillum's Terminus.
Yep. Look, I just want Thunderlord back, and I'm just going to put that at an end.
Thunderlord, or what were the other two? Nova Mortis and Abaddon?
No, Thunderlord, because they screwed up the coding on the other two.
Honestly, if I was using a heavy machine gun, it was Yodeler's Hammer, and that was
or super good.
Honestly,
oh my god! So this reminds me, Justin, you'll remember this conversation, but do you remember when we first got super good advice and we were reading the lore on it? And I swear, what we should have gotten with super good advice was a little heads-up display with a little emoticon that looked like the supervisor from Halo ODST, and it should have been, because like super good advice was always like presented as like this like snarky AI based gun. And it would have just been like the perfect opportunity for a little emoticon face to be like, when it's fully loaded, to have like a happy face. When it's, out of ammo, it's a sad face. When it's, just immediate, like, I still have that picture in my head of that particular heads up display.
Yeah, that would have been awesome.
Just FYI, there are 3 blue weapons that mention Crux Lamar in their description, but they're all rocket launchers.
Mm-hmm. Is any of them? Or is one of them Baron?
Silvered Warmonger, Painted Camelot, and Primed Khan.
Okay, so they were all rulers.
Yeah, they all have, well, Silvered Warmonger SA/4, Painted Camelot SA/4, and Primed Khan RS/4.
Yeah, we're all waiting for that next DLC, Faisal Goes West. But yes.
Oh God.
Justin, why do you sound so far away?
Because he got yelled at by about a Twinkie the last time he was.
I was afraid I was gonna get hit.
That's what I was. A Twinkie?
That's what I.
Leaning back. I didn't want to get caught.
Not gonna. Okay, moving on.
Well, as always, we love hearing everyone's feedback. This week's question to the community, I believe, did we ever settle on what it is this week?
No.
Well, at this point, I think the question is, do you know about the Twinkie?
Do you know about the
Twinkie? Answer is no, I don't know about the Twinkie. You're wrong. There's the Baird answer for you, which I have to give apparently every single week.
Every week, huh? We bring up the Twinkie every week.
No, not the Twinkie every week. It's just me going, why is it? What is your favorite gunsmith, and why is it Shiro 4, and why are you wrong otherwise? That's one such example. Or the one previously where it was like, hey, or this one where it was like, hey, what is your favorite weapons foundry, and why is it Amelan, and why are you wrong otherwise?
If you want a squirt gun, fine, shoot a squirt gun.
It is not a squirt gun. It is not a squirt gun. That is not a metaphor.
Green hide music lava.
So real quick question. Next week's topic, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. Next week's topic is going to be the Guardian's potential, especially in light of the Traveler having woken up. Do we want to do... What do you think the next challenge is going to be for our Guardians to overcome?
I'd be okay with that.
Yeah. I'm with that.
I know the other option is why are some Guardians more special than others, I think was the other one that we were throwing around.
That's an answer only a mother can give.
Fair enough. Okay, we're going with the first one. All right. So I know everyone here is looking forward to diving into the discussion, so let's run through our standard intro notes, and then we'll get right into it. In our last episode of Focus Fire Chat, we discussed the lore surrounding the lead-up to the Warmind DLC. If you ever miss an episode and would like to catch up, please be sure to check out FocusFireChat.com for archives, articles, and links to the other aspects of Focus Fire Chat. If you don't mind, please rate and, if you can, review the show on iTunes, Podbeans, or whichever podcasting app you use to enjoy podcasts. Reviews are extremely helpful as they not only let us know what we can do better, but help us stay on the charts, which helps others find our amazing community. To those of you who have already taken the time to leave us a review, thank you. As many of you already know, Focus Fire Chat is a cross-community gathering where the intent is to offer a week-long, in-depth view of a particular subject from within the lore of Destiny and other games. This chat begins every Tuesday morning and runs until the following Tuesday, with topics decided by the group via a poll that begins every Friday and ends on the Tuesday morning of the new chat. Every Friday at around 10 p.m. Central, we get together to stream a high-level summary of the previous week's chat for those who were unable to participate. Please be sure to also give some support to the other podcasts in the Guardian Radio Network, links of which can be found in our show notes or on our website. And if you're a fan of lore in all its various forms, please be sure to check out thelorenetwork.com, where you can find a wide variety of some amazing content covering a number of different titles and mediums. Our next chat is going to be a discussion on Guardian potential. As always, please be sure to weigh in on the poll this weekend to let us know which topic you want to discuss after that. Links to that poll can be found on either Twitter at FocusFireChat or within our Discord server. With all that being said, here's Green with a high-level summary of tonight's topic.
Gear up, Guardian! Today, we venture off into the great... You don't have anything? Well, that won't do at all. One can't expect to accomplish anything quickly if you aren't outfitted properly. Here, give this to the gunsmith and he'll set you up nicely. That is, if he can remember to do so. You know, on the other hand, go see those quartermaster... Oh, right. They aren't doing that anymore. Ah, shanks. I guess you really do have to go talk to the old rust bucket. Alright then, let him know I sent you. No, I know he might not remember me, but trust me, he'll fulfill his end of the deal, even if he isn't really all there.
Before we jump into the information and thoughts that the community had about Gunsmiths, however, let's have a quick chat about this week's Lost Lore. All right, so this week I think we're going to take a step a little bit out of the game world and actually talk a little bit about actual historical events in regards to the art of gunsmithing, just because it is kind of relevant. So real quick, to kind of introduce this idea in reality, gunsmithing is an actual trade. It is a person who repairs, modifies, designs, or builds firearms. So it's a concept of smithing was originally kind of like the blacksmiths. You also will see sometimes like silversmith, like you have specialized forms of smithing, but it's usually someone who actually deals with that trade. It's very hands-on. It's blacksmithing again is a very specialized trade. To kind of give you a history of gunsmiths, basically the first firearms, if you guys know this, the first firearms date back to about the 1200s, and they were invented in China. And this technology actually did eventually make it to Europe, and it was there that Italian craftsmen assembled that area as the Europeans' first gun barrels. So the thing about that, though, is at that time in history, individuals who did work in that type of field were required really to be in what were called guilds. And these were basically, for a lack of a better example, and this is a gross oversimplification, it was kind of a union. What this would do is it would ensure that those individuals were protected from economical strong arming, as well as promoting different things, making sure that there was a standard design and standard quality, not just for them, but for also their patrons and so on. And really at the introduction of gunsmithing, gunsmiths were a very specialized trade. It was a very new trade, and so they didn't have a guild at that time. And it wasn't until about mid-1400s, and actually about 1463 is one of the first times that we see a document of a guild, and that was in Seoul, Germany. But they actually became, when they started, they joined up with blacksmiths guilds. And so it was from about the 1200s, around that point, maybe 1300s, till about mid-1400s, they were actually considered blacksmiths. And it was about midway through 1400s that they actually gained enough ground and gained enough really political and economical capital that they actually were able to split off and build and form their own guilds. So to kind of touch base on what it is that gunsmithing is, at that time, so the current idea of a gun is actually a very modern version. The original guns, we were kind of joking about this in the intro, but the original guns were really, really primitive. They were very basic from today's standards. The musket even was actually a more advanced form than the earlier like flintlock pistols and stuff like that. And at that time, the average time it took to construct like a flintlock or, a blunderbuss or any of those guns, about the average time was about 400 hours. And that was for a single gun. So, I mean, it was a very demanding trade. And not only that, but the trade actually demanded an enormous amount of knowledge. you had to be a master in various trades. So it wasn't just metalworking, it was also woodworking. You had some degree of chemical knowledge because you had to understand gunpowder. It was a very tedious process, and apprentices were known to spend years before they were even eligible to test out and become not even a journeyman, but like a journeyman, but not a master. I mean, a master would have been doing this particular trade for the majority of his life. So again, these were just the most basic forms. So like the concept of, the idea of rifling, which is, for those who might not be super familiar with gun design, rifling is a concept in which you take the barrel and you actually score so from a metalsmithing point of view, scoring is when you kind of etch something into the metal, and rifling is the idea of scoring a spiral inside the barrel. And what this does is this actually spin. So when you fire the metal slug in the early versions of guns, it would just bounce down this chamber, and that's where you have musket fires, which is why it's in that particular time period. If you look at the way that especially like the British Redcoats were very famous for this, the firing lines, that is why you had lines of soldiers. You didn't have sharpshooters. A sharpshooter for a musket is kind of an oxymoron, because muskets, what they would do is basically it was a round ball of metal that would literally just bounce its way down a barrel and then kind of slingshot out in a general vicinity. And so if you didn't have a line of fire, you weren't going to hit anything. Which is why when you had an introduction of rifling or even the guerrilla warfare tactics that you saw in the American Revolution, that's why it messed with the redcoats so much, was because the normal practice of war was not it wasn't this like hit and run tactics. It was you lined up across the field from each other and you kind of just lobbied metal balls at each other. Like it really was very small versions of cannons. So what they did was they eventually came up with this idea of rifling. And rifling was, like I said, it's the scoring of a spiral inside the barrel that basically makes that slug spin. And that does a number of things. It makes it significantly more accurate, because as part of that spin, it is actually making the slug shoot straight. So now when you shoot out of a rifled barrel, your bullet will actually go where you're pointing, or the general vicinity of where you're pointing. Instead of with a musket, you literally would have I think it was a spread of about maybe 90 to 100 degrees outside of the end of your barrel that particular bullet could go. You never knew. And then, yeah, Justin, I know you wanted to.
Oh, I was just gonna say,
the ball versus slug, yeah.
Yeah, it's anyone who's ever thrown a baseball can tell you the how a pitcher throws a curveball is he puts spin on it. So as the air drags across the curved surface of the sphere, it actually produces a curved flight path. So the only way to make a ball go straight is exactly what you're talking about, right? Going at that speed.
Well, and that's also where you see the evolution from a musket ball into an actual, what we consider a bullet today, is that kind of like, it's actually a flat end with a little bit of I don't know. It's a really weird thing to describe, but like, and then you have like arm,
like have a longer length dimension than it has a face.
Right, and that also gives you a higher speed as well.
Yeah.
And that's also due to the way that bullets have also been created over time.
Correct. Yeah.
And also there are means of how they're propelled, because the blasting cap was not something that was built as a typical thing. That's why we went from balls to bullets. As a ball, if you're talking a smoothbore rifle like we would have used even through the Civil War ages, then at that point you would have actually loaded it with a blasting cap, gunpowder, and a couple other things before you put the ball into the barrel of the gun. And this actually led to the mini ball actually being propelled through the rifle and outward. It's also what caused. Yep. It's also what caused a few of those rifles to then be pushed away, because as they developed rifling, and especially when we started seeing guys like Smith & Wesson or others produce weaponry, they were then involving rifling, and this also brought about increased casualties that we started to see about the Civil War. That's another reason we started to use guerrilla tactics quite a bit more, because we developed this new technology, and we almost needed to, otherwise casualties were going to kind of start turning into Gettysburg or Antietam levels almost every day.
Right. And, and actually talking about that, the history of the Smith & Wesson and Browning rifles is actually a really fascinating story if you have any interest in that.
Same with revolvers.
Revolvers, yeah.
Now,
what is it? Colt and what was?
We had Sam Colt. You also had Smith & Wesson.
Smith & Wesson's. Yeah, the history of I think it was Smith & Wesson. Like the political history of that development from a family's perspective is just really fascinating.
Well, you also had the Winchesters.
Winchester, that was the one. That was
big family.
Yeah, Winchester was the one that I was thinking of. That was the one that that family has. That is a very interesting story to read. Is the history of that? And pins, Remingtons were really big. But to kind of
those are still the four big families we have. Like we've got Colt, we've got Remington, Smith & Wesson. And you've got, Winchesters, and they're still pretty well the big four that we have in terms of gunsmiths that you kind of know of throughout the American regions. They're very popular firearms because they've held the test of time. Not all of their weapons have, but just to kind of put it in overall demeanor for these gunsmiths and their families. They've kind of been the ones that have crafted these weapons and further and beyond than I would say probably any or most others have. Not to say that, like German or other manufacturers haven't done a very big job, because it's been more of a collaborative effort over time, kind of like how it has been since the Chinese and above as we've moved through history. It's almost always been a collaborative effort.
Yeah, and I know like the big jump there was especially with the Browning rifle and the Winchesters, and the combination of it wasn't the cavalry rifle, it was the I just blanked on the name, but it's the way that you would reload. The rifle would allow for one-handed reloads while on horseback.
Oh. A lever action?
Lever action, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, like, repeater. Repeater. If you, but like the repeater with the lever on the bottom, right?
Yeah,
that's a lever action.
Lever action repeaters. It's what you see Arnold use in T2 with the, the model 1882, was it? The sawed-off.
Yeah. And the story of that particular gun's development, like I'm not joking. Like taking the gun out of it, like just talking about the political development of this family's development, and you kind of see this in game too, in Destiny, to kind of bring it back towards Destiny. This actually is not unique to Destiny. The political infighting that went on in Gunsmiths and Destiny and with the weapons foundries is actually calm, is actually very peaceful compared to some of the infighting that you see with Winchester, with the Colt, and the Smith & Wessons, and the Browning especially. The Browning rifle was, I think it was Browning and Winchester, that they were the two powerhouses that went at each other. And obviously the Winchester obviously through dubious means, the Winchester actually won that. And it's a fascinating history. But to kind of bring it to kind of put it in perspective, I was talking to Green about this before the show, and she made the comment about, like, okay, so your initial versions of the guns were taking about 400 hours, which, I mean, it's an enormous amount of time, and that was for a single gun. To put it in perspective, the average time to construct a musical instrument such as a violin, and this is just a basic violin, this isn't like your super fancy, Stradivarius, which I tried to find a time frame for Stradivarius. The problem with Stradivarius is we don't know how they were made really. So we can't put a timestamp like on how long it takes, but an average standard violin would take about 200 hours to put together. I mean, again, that is a long time to put together anything, which is also why these people were considered very specialized tradesmen. And they again, guilds were very, very territorial, especially about the master tradesmen. And I'm actually going to kind of use that to kind of segue into the introduction of the gunsmiths, because the important thing here to remember is that the gunsmiths themselves, these are, so when we talk about gunsmiths, these are the individuals who are experts at creating and repairing the guns of the city in Destiny. And so basically, why do we care about these individuals? Because these are the individuals who are maintaining all of the economy that is being done by these weapon foundries. So they deal with the creation and maintenance of firearms, the invention of new firearms, which is very important for some of these foundries, such as the Crux Lomar foundry, which we talked about a little bit in the introduction there. But, sorry. Oh, yeah, Purple, that's a really good
Sorry,
point.
I didn't mean to distract you.
No. Sorry, I saw the message pop up, and I was like, "What's this?" So you want to let me go through the rest of this real quick, and then I will swing back around that, because that's a really interesting point. So real quick, gunsmiths, they are not weapon foundries. That is a very different thing. A lot of them will work for weapon foundries, but there are independents. You have the Stoic, you have Gaunt. There's a few known gunsmiths that are independent.
Toland.
Toland. God, can't ever get away from Toland.
We could also say Osiris. We could also say
Guardians to a large degree, and that's actually kind of on with Tex Mechanica's mentality there as well. Where do we see them? Obviously, predominantly, this is going to be around the last city, which is the kind of the economical hub of the game world in Destiny. And when, throughout history, humanity has always had gunsmiths. There's a few interesting little tidbits that actually got pretty much canonized, I would say, in the Warmind DLC. One being Asimov. We now know that Asimov's law of robotics exists in the Destiny universe, which is actually really cool, because that kind of ties Destiny's universe into our own universe in a way. And in a lot of ways, actually, and that makes a lot of the,
we'll say,
yeah, and it makes and what I like about that is that means that the history that we just got done talking about in our Lost Lore is actually applicable to Destiny. We can actually kind of be like, okay, now we have the grounds and the precedent to kind of say this is actually similar.
Same with our space race and everything.
Correct.
Else
yeah, the cosmonauts.
We've gone through. It all ties in wonderfully.
Political disputes being another one that really makes me think, especially with some of the new lore entries as well, because of is it the Catamaran or the Ares 1 team? It depends on which time frame you're looking at there. Right. So gunsmiths are going to be, these are the experts. These are the people who know what they're doing so well that they can do it in their sleep, and they are like the geniuses of this time. And before I kind of go into one of my big points about this being actually one of the more essential trades of humanity, I'm going to actually go back to Purple's comment. So Purple, you want to talk about what you were distracting me with just a second ago?
Sure. So earlier, I think it might have been before the show, we were discussing the name Clovis Bray and how the kind of tour guide AI things that we can listen to, sometimes it sounds like that Clovis is not a person, but kind of like a generic entity or title or something like that. But we have a lot of support that says there was a Clovis person as well, like having a Clovis Bray II. kind of implies that there was a first one. So then it got me thinking that perhaps because Clovis named his company after himself, that his name became an eponym, which, if you don't know what an eponym is, it's someone whose name becomes the word associated with it, with whatever their discovery or invention or whatever. So, for example, Bic pens, the ballpoint pen that we steal from the bank. Bic was a person.
We count those, by the way. We watch you while you steal them.
Why?
Hey, listen.
Do you know how much those cost?
After a while, those things are not cheap.
Sorry, Purple.
It's okay. But anyway, there are lots of eponyms. You can Google them if you like. But anyway, that was just a thought that I had, because we know a couple things about the Golden Age. It's unusual for an eponym to become so ubiquitous immediately, but we do know that humanity, lifespan tripled. So it's possible that happened, during that time frame. Because while I'm sure that lifespan tripled, I don't know that meant necessarily that language development would slow, proportionally. So,
well, it would make sense though that it would, right?
Because I'm sure that it would slow, but I don't know that if it would.
Oh, proportion. Yeah, I guess that's fair.
Like proportion, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. No, that does make sense. Believe me, I went down. Beard and Green can attest to the rabbit hole that I went down the other day with that concept of lifespan tripling and the idea of the timeline that actually presents within the Destiny universe. There was a lot of painful math in my brain.
So just to kind of, I guess, bring it full circle, if you will, talking about weapons and that right as well. One of the more, as Pens reminds me of in chat, Colt was famous for a very, very big revolver by the name of the Peacemaker. Is that similar to kind of what you're saying, just to kind of put more of an example towards what you're looking at? Like, I know the idea is like Clovis is now the president status, if you will, I suppose, but does that also apply, I guess, to the weapons or something like that, like the Colt Peacemaker, even though Colt's a company?
Yeah, I think that it probably is used in a similar way. We would certainly say, like, if you had a Colt pistol, you wouldn't necessarily say, I have a gun made by the Colt company or whatever. Obviously it was named after Samuel Colt, who founded the company. But you would just say, I have a Colt, like people know what that means. So that is a kind of, I guess, a subsect of eponyms. So in that sense, I guess, it could be similar to Clovis. The line that caught me up on it was, gosh, now I can't think of what it said. It was like, we are all Clovis or something like that.
Oh, don't forget, you are Clovis, Bray.
Yes.
Yeah. So, but like, we don't have it really the context for that line, right? It's a line that could mean like the company, like if this is a tour for employees, like if it's an internal thing, maybe it's like the intro tour for new employees. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? So like, it could mean it like that way. Or it could be, we know that Clovis put out a call for people to bring their inventions. What was the card? Like, bring me your grandchildren, or we want your grandchildren, or whatever.
The Meridian Bay card, the creepy card.
Yeah,
we want your children. No, not like that.
your grandkids. But so like, to me, I always read that as a public, call. It didn't feel like it was something they posted just to their employees.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So in that case, that we are all Clovis Bray line could be like that the company of Clovis Bray is trying to garner support from the general public for some reason to, help them invent things or make the world better or whatever it is that they're trying to do.
You mean to keep their shady inventions underneath everything?
That too.
Bray is essentially Big Weld from the movie Robots.
I mean,
that's not wrong.
It's
not wrong.
Say something about the Terminator company and
Skynet.
What was the other one? Yeah.
It was the Tyrell Corporation.
The Tyrell Corporation, yeah.
And it is also Alien with the Weyland-Yutani Corporation. Those were the two that were highly referenced in the live stream.
Yeah.
So that's why I continue to think, oh no, they really weren't as good as we think they were.
And you want to talk about a rabbit hole, the Weyland Corporation and the connection between aliens.
Yeah, and the connection with the Hive being underneath a facility in Mars that they kind of maybe built something on top of.
Oh, what came first? Did the Weyland Corporation come first, or did the discovery of exo life come?
Oh, you mean like I talked about last week?
Yeah,
that I'm still on, that I'm still trying to figure out, and I still am. The
Tyrell Corporation. Now all I have is the idea of Clovis Bray, who is now firmly ingrained in my head as Stephen Fry. By the way, sitting behind a desk making a little unicorn out of wrapper paper.
I love Stephen Fry.
Yeah. I was also thinking of like walking through a couple double doors and being like, dwarves, go get me gold. That's fine.
Or that too.
No, I was shoot. It was something about Weyland and that's right. The Tyrell Corporation relation. I was actually thinking more on the lines of the exoscience that was done, but more about exos in general. And I kind of find it funny that they related all of that back to it, because talking about resets and how Blade Runner utilizes itself, that's actually giving me more thought than I had before. Like, honestly, if we're going to relate everything back to these movies, that just gave us, as a lore community, a lot more to start relating to and to have firepower for.
Let's be honest, Beard. The reason why I'm excited that we're relating it back to Blade Runner is because that gives me a hope of getting my hands on one of those pistols.
Oh yeah,
in game.
Totally.
Oh my god.
Right.
So
anyway, I feel like we got a huge tangent.
Yeah, for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, go watch Blade Runner, because weapon wise, that gun is amazing. Chat. If we're talking guns, I want Judge Dredd's.
Oh yeah,
fair enough.
Actually, I want RoboCop's back. Give me my trespass.
Well, because I was about to say, it wasn't that the trespasser was
sort of, but I didn't have alt fire on it. Like I couldn't switch it from single to standard.
What was there was a Titan leg, wasn't Peacekeepers? Was that the one that had the RoboCop function?
Yep.
The little pocket, yeah.
Yep.
So, man.
Yeah, guns are kind of important in Destiny.
Yeah, just a little bit. Which actually kind of brings me to the next point that I was going to talk about. I kind of was like, while it's not the oldest profession of humanity, it's definitely one of the most essential. I'm so glad someone giggled at that. And the reason I say that is because it kind of what Beard is kind of making the point here is like, not only is Destiny obviously a first person shooter, but inside the game world. So think about this. The city economy is driven by this substance called glimmer. And the thing is that the thing about glimmer is it is literally described as programmable matter. So stop for a second and think about that. So what you're talking about is the currency that you are using is then turned around and actually used to make things. We are actually in a trade, like a literal trading community. And that's why glimmer is such an important commodity, is because that's literally what is being used to create the world in which we exist. So it is actually used in part to make the weapons that we use in the game. So that means that those individuals who are very skilled in smithing, which, by the way, if you're very skilled in something, that means that you can make more or something better out of less material. So those who are skilled with smithing, or glimmer smithing, I'd almost go ahead and call it, are going to be in high demand by the companies which rely on that creation of devices to make their income. And you'll actually see this in a number of dialogue lines from Banshee 44, and from, actually, there's a Ghost Fragment or a couple of Ghost Fragment cards with Shax dealing with Tex Mechanica and their attempts to throw Crucible matches, because that's how we find out that foundries actually showcase weapons in the Crucible to kind of show, oh, this gun is better than our competitors. But Banshee actually makes a comment about Cassoid. Yeah, same thing. Cassoid and Daito.
Wow.
In the sense that he actually makes a comment. I think it's Cassoid. He makes a comment about. He's like, "Oh, this is a good design, but we can't tell them because it'll go straight to their heads." Or so. I think it was that Cassoid or was it Daito? It was, one of them was Cassoid and the other one was like, "Don't let the Daito representative get away with it" or something.
Well, it was I think it was Cassoid, because most of the Daito stuff is like Daito's asking for more glimmer.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. What's going on in their heads down there or something like that? He's like, people are dying, right, and they're worried about glimmer.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, meanwhile, that carries into another theory.
Oh yeah, I was about to say that does,
for another day.
That does actually. I was about to mention that too.
Yeah.
So yeah, and so again, political events going on behind the scenes within the Destiny universe, and this actually kind of gets into economy. This kind of gets into the conversation with Banshee a little bit. I know a lot of people have this question about Banshee, and before we jump into, I guess Banshee is technically a gunsmith. He is described as such in the game. He does have one of those really cool 3D printers behind him, which is also something I kind of want to talk about. And Green, do you want to kind of lead this particular one?
I was just actually going to pose a question. We're talking about Banshee being a gunsmith and how they're able to convert glimmer and everything over. We do have sort of somebody else who can do that, but they're not necessarily considered a gunsmith.
Who's
the Cryptarchs.
Well, so like the Cryptarchs. Okay, so here's the difference.
They decrypt the engrams, sure, but
right, but an engram. So that's a really good point, actually, and I want to kind of explain why I'm kind of interjecting here. An engram is not. So an engram is made of glimmer, but glimmer is not necessarily always an engram. An engram is actually a patch of glimmer that has a coded encryption already built into the programmable matter. Glimmer in and of itself in its pure state does not have a program embedded in it. So when you say that you're making something out of a glimmer, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's an engram. An engram is something that you pick up and it's a patch of. That's why if you actually look in game at your engrams, those I can't even remember what they look like. D20s. Whatever. It's a D20. It's a D20. Just whatever. It's D20. If you look at those, look at what it looks like. It's a ball of glimmer with a core inside of it. And so what a Cryptarch is doing is just simply decrypting that data and then enabling the data to go ahead and finish being converted onto the glimmer that's included there. Whereas and this is me, so this is my understanding. Whereas a gunsmith is actually the one who is writing the program, or is writing the program to program the matter. So the Cryptarch's just simply translating.
Okay, so it's like if you want to buy a bookshelf, if you don't go to
IKEA.
So if you go to IKEA, that's like having an engram because you have all the parts and have instructions. You just follow the directions. Or you can like go to the hardware store and buy your own wood and design your own bookshelf and build it from scratch.
That sounds more like my.
That's a gunsmith.
So our
that's what the gunsmith
differentiation is the artisan versus the mass producer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Dino in chat right now, he says that, basically engram is information without matter. Glimmer is matter without information.
That's a good way to put it.
Well,
so
I just wanted to.
Glimmer is the matter with potential, and then the engram is basically the potential that you need the matter for.
There is also a new scannable that was placed into Warmind that actually explains the entirety of engrams, like from start to finish. Yeah. And it's absolutely fantastic because it basically says that we got too good for silicon chips, and we needed a different way in order to actually stow or keep information or otherwise handy. And that basically ended up being the engram and how they ended up forming that. But it's a super interesting listen. I'm not going to try to quote it word for word at this point, but
it's in the Lost Sector by the Hephaestus Adventure.
Also,
area.
Another side note: you can also find the one on Exos in there too. So definitely,
because they're tied together, and then also to tie back into Destiny 1. That is why I can't remember the sword, I think it's Dark Drinker, that is why you have to run around the Mars area and pick up all the relic iron, is because the relic iron was actually the chrysalis basis that Willa used to design engrams. She kind of piggybacked off I think it was the molecular structure of the relic iron, and then that's what led to the eureka moment that led to the creation of engrams and Glimmer almost, I think.
So based on this definition and this clarification of the discrepancy between a gunsmith and a cryptarch and Glimmer versus an engram, I think we may owe Rahul an apology. He doesn't write the sheet music, he's just playing the piano. That's why I'm getting from.
Yeah, it's not. It's not his fault that you rolled a critical failure on your D20.
Exactly.
Oh.
I still hate him.
He's not as bad as what's his name.
Well, Chat is immediately. I will never apologize.
1,000 deaths are not enough.
No,
I'm just saying. By that definition. It is so not his fault.
Rahul's not that bad, guys. You can't help it.
Ives was worse. Ives was 10 times worse.
Yeah, Ives was.
He was just snarkier.
Hey, you guardians, come in here. Take our finest things.
He was snarkier.
He was rude.
Tyra for best cryptarch, except for the fact that I thought she was going to end up turning into a jerk, and she wasn't a jerk.
Tyra also just can't apparently remember things. Now.
I kept waiting for her
making.
Waiting for her to knit me a shawl.
The best part about Tyra is her ghost name.
I know.
What was it?
It's Ghost. She refuses to give it a name.
No. She says, pick your own name. You can think about it.
I know. That's what I mean. Is like she's like, I'm not going to give you a name. You can pick your own name. And it the ghost gets like all huffy. It's really funny.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's up there with. Oh, you have one of the uptight ones.
Yes.
Oh, that's really good.
I just love how our guardian just
how he just looks at the ghost and it's like,
I wanted my guardian to look and say, right?
And on that day,
time to start talking again.
On that day, our guardian started talking, and he looks at the camera and goes, "What?"
Wow.
Okay, so I mean, so pulling back into the conversation there for gunsmiths, though, I think that also kind of, Green, to circle back around to the comment about the cryptarchs. I think that also points back to what really makes these individuals special, is because they're not just doing. I mean, not to say that the cryptarchs aren't doing a complex task, because they are. These engrams are, ancient engrams from before our time. in the Golden Age, but a gunsmith is actually pretty much reinventing things, using stuff as a building block for sure. But you see that with Shiro 4 and the Trespasser, where he kit bashes the entire thing together, or with what was the pulse rifle? Outbreak Prime. Wasn't that another Shiro kit bash? Because he just pulled Siva Tech and was like, oh yeah, this looks good, and kind of.
Well, most of our Rise of Iron weapons were really like Shiro kit bashes, realistically, because we had the Trespasser, which is Shiro 4's weapon. We had Galahorn, which actually was infused with Siva. We had the Outbreak Prime, which basically is a Siva pulse rifle that starts to spew out the mites. And we also had Kvastov's 0GX, I think it was. And that was his new model for Kvastov.
Was that Shiro as well? I didn't remember that part. Okay.
Yeah, he was the one that basically said, go out and get me the blueprints and I'll put the thing back together for you. And that's the only rate of fire weapon that we have to choose from that exists that's out there. And that's what makes it so absolutely unique and befitting of that quest line, just getting it from somebody that works with weapons. But most of our Rise of Iron weaponry that we crafted was all thanks to Shiro. I think, Justin, you might have had something to add to that?
Oh, I was just going to kind of further add another analogy into the mix for the difference between a Cryptarch and a gunsmith. It hit me a gunsmith is like it's like a painter who's painting a new painting, whereas a Cryptarch is almost like a curator who's recreating an existing work. They both may use some of the same. They both may use some of the same paints, but and have some of the same skills. But one of them is creating an original work from raw materials, and the other is meticulously recreating an existing work.
Right. I like that. I like that example a lot.
Your Cryptarchs are also just trying to find history. They're trying to recreate our past through these different engrams, whereas Banshee's building a gun.
I'm going to say that's the biggest difference. You're talking guys that are researching versus guys that are creating. So.
Yeah. And is he ever going to be finished with that one Suros gun that's always in his hand every time?
No, because it keeps. Let me tell you, on PC for some reason that keeps looking worse and worse every time I see it. So I don't think we need to let him work on any weapons. I think he just keeps forgetting that he's got to actually fix it.
Has anyone checked in the new tower? Does he still have his 3D printer behind him?
He does, yeah.
Okay, because I know that was like one of the cool things with in Destiny 1 was.
Do you think he grabbed it on his way through evac?
He probably forgot about it.
I can't leave it behind.
The only other thing that I really want to know more about, more so than that 3D printer, is Justin, what is it? The probability kilns from the city.
Yeah, the probability. The cat with the jelly toast.
The cat with the jelly toast on it back.
Oh.
Which is the second reference to the Heinlein book Variable Star in one episode.
I'm trying, Justin. I'm trying.
There you go. Shout out to my boy Blue.
But to kind of go back, we have Banshee, we also have Shiro. The other ones that really kind of come to mind is Gaunt, who is an exo gunsmith who is renowned. Actually, I don't know if we hear from Gaunt in Destiny 2, but in Destiny 1, his fusion rifle, 77 Wizard. He was apparently renowned for his wizards, which was, I guess, kind of similar to like what we were talking about with the Colt and the Browning rifles.
Did they have like a squad? A squad of them?
A wizard squad!
Wizard squad!
That gun wrecked shop in PvP, by the way.
It did.
It was a fun fusion rifle. The other one that comes to mind is the Stoic, though the Stoic was more, in my mind, I always kind of saw the Stoic more as a Cryptarch because he kind of did more research-based creation. You'll know him from Zen Meteor, and then what was did he create another one? Or no, he just has flavor text in Destiny 2, doesn't he? I don't think he has a weapon.
There was a couple things, but most of them are also linked towards our good old favorite, Taiko 3.
Yeah, I was about to say, and the connection for Destiny 2 really predominantly is Taiko 3, who was a co-creator of the Zen Meteor. It was Taiko, the Stoic, and there was a third person. I can't remember the third individual. And then
there was one other.
Apparently, this was kind of an interesting little twist that I found, and Green kind of made a comment about it in her summary. We don't have Quartermasters anymore. They're all Gunsmiths. So Archite 9940 is no longer listed as a Quartermaster. He's listed as a Gunsmith, which is I have a few theories on like how I could explain that, but I was curious what you guys' thoughts on that particular one was.
I think it kind of falls in line with everything, but before I put my thoughts out there, I'll let Justin chime in.
Yeah, I think it's actually directly in line with the fact that we had this. Yeah, I mean, it definitely wasn't like an opulent palace of a place, but we had a city where we wanted for nothing, and in that we were able to have great stores of inventory, for which anyone who's ever ran a big enterprise with a multitude of inventory knows there needs to be someone who's, herding all those wet cats. So that's what a quartermaster's for. Now we've been booted out of our tower. We've kind of had to scrimshaw a new one together. And rather than having, bureaucrats counting, auto rifles, it's a much, I guess the whole thing I'm trying to say is it just falls in line with us having a much more Spartan structure to our
the difference between having a bunch of guns and having to push them out versus having to make a bunch of guns because everything got destroyed in the Red War attack.
All of Cade's stuff.
Yes.
Well, and additionally, if you start looking at how like Arcite as a character has also gone through a lot of battle. He's probably handled a ton of different weapons. He's kind of gotten used to how they are, and he is one of the few that has been around for a very long time, save for like Dahlia 9940, who also fits that bill. Still waiting to hear from her, BT Dubs, because my goodness. I think that the two of them have seen so much battle that they've needed to either do field repair or something else on their equipment that they could have probably been programmed with some of that stuff inside of them to begin with. And especially with them having learning protocols, both Arcite and Dahlia have probably been able to create their own weapons. So I would probably say that again, this falls right in line with them being more, instead of quartermasters, turning more into gunsmiths. Additionally, I find it funny that every single gunsmith that we kind of see that's been kind of presented to us recently are all exos. And the only one that doesn't fit this bill is Wei Ning.
Toland.
Because Wei Ning, look you.
To be fair, he's not wrong.
He's not wrong. Now, Toland was doing it for experimentation and purposes more than anything, but like Wei Ning was at least influenced by with the Fighting Lion was at least influenced by an EXO, and that would be Ariana 3.
Yeah, I think she was more challenged by her ghost than anything.
Yep. And it's
I love
not to
that
say
card.
that
that card is hilariously awesome. Like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. And again, it's not to say that like the EXO are the only ones that are putting them together, but they're the ones that are seemingly showcased more often to us than not. And I find that correlation kind of funny.
It's like the Awoken or the Cryptarchs.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I know you guys have heard my theory on that one. But to go real quick, to go back to the Dahlia and Arcite, Dahlia has actually been called out as being an X. Like she showed I'm trying to remember exactly what they said, but one of the techs made a comment in the Ghost Fragments that Dahlia was like really good at field repairs of weapons and equipment. So like, and also if you kind of go back to the original like concept of the historical nature of gunsmithing, one of the things with guilds that you see is you would have a progression from apprentice to you know, junior apprentice to, you know, journeyman to master, you know, like there's progressions of skill. And if you have a kind of similar concept, the quartermaster could become a gunsmith after time. And that especially is true if Archite has learning, you know, protocols, which we know the frames mostly do. I mean, there is an explanation that doesn't require it to be quote unquote, I know everyone's favorite term, retcon, which it's not, with it being completely explained in the progression of a particular gunsmithing, you know, code or gunsmithing expectation of experience equaling, you know, a particular title being given.
I just assumed that it was because everything got dead and exploded when the tower died. I mean,
there is that too.
No, we used to have all the weapons, and now we have like 3. So we should probably make some more.
Right, but I mean, I guess my challenge there, and I totally hear that, but I guess my challenge there is that you can say, I mean, a journey. So like when I was doing blacksmithing, right? When we were apprenticing under things, the apprentices do a lot of the grunt work, which is the point. Like you as an apprentice, that's what you're supposed to be doing, is to learn the trade. You need to do all the grunt work, and you need to do all that, the stuff that the masters don't want, not necessarily don't want to, but they're busy doing the more skilled necessary thing. So a quartermaster could still cobble together the basic frames of guns and leave it up to the gunsmiths to actually finish the weapons. So to actually call someone a gunsmith is kind of where I'm kind of pushing back a little bit on that. And it might just be me splitting hairs. I mean, that's also entirely possible.
I could definitely, it's kind of a swords into plowshares and vice versa type thing. You know, like when we had the city and when we had comfort and when we had complacency, you know, there were a lot fewer gunsmiths. You know, in fact, Milli Vanilli Destiny, there was only one gun.
Well, but no, that's not entirely true though, because we had the foundries and they had gunsmiths, because Tex Mechanica had mentions of gunsmiths even from the earliest mentions of that foundry. I'm just
talking about a city sanctioned gunsmith. We can always kind of assume that there's outliers building guns.
Banshee was a tower sanctioned gunsmith.
Yes, not city. I meant tower.
Yeah, that's at least where I would kind of point that out a little bit more. Same with like Eva Levante being trusted enough to give us, you know, shaders and emblems and not giving them to Tess Everest. What?
I miss her.
I miss Eva.
I'm just so glad that we got confirmation that she's still alive.
I miss her cats.
Yeah.
And her soup. She made good
I mean, she's still out there. She works for Ikora as a hidden anyway.
That would be interesting.
Might officially be the most boring hidden.
What are you talking about? No, she's probably one of the... Yes.
Yeah, no, she's definitely the Agent Coulson of the hidden.
No.
But that's what makes her so effective.
Tahiti is a magical place.
Wow.
Chat real quick. Chat makes a really good... Sorry, Beard. Just wanted to throw in. Chat made a really good point. Uzuma Vale was the other Zen Meteor connection.
Yeah.
I think that was the hunter, right? Because Stoic was the warlock, and then Taiko was a warlock as well, I believe.
Yes.
So Vale would have been the hunter, and I'm assuming that's not an exo since we don't have a number after it. So, but Beard, go back. Sorry.
No, I think Justin kind of touched on the point I was looking to make anyway. just in the idea of like how gunsmiths are kind of like put together and whatnot, there's more than kind of meets the eye when it comes to like the city foundries and everything as well. But I don't know. I think we're still not seeing all of them. I guess that's the best way to kind of put it, as we're kind of seeing with like Gaunt and whatnot having like one or two mentions. Mm-hmm. Anyway,
the only other thing that I can think of, I'm trying to remember if there was any other like named gunsmiths particularly. I know most of the foundries were called out as having gunsmiths. Again, like we've kind of talked about that a couple times. And Justin, did you have anything that you wanted to?
Yeah. I just wanted to kind of point out a certain similarity. Throughout history, there's always a surge in the gunsmith kind of population right after a conflict. So right after a war, because guys get invaluable experience field modifying their weapons, maintaining their weapons. All this is like all the field modification and maintenance they do on their weapons during prolonged conflict, like a war. It's almost like an apprenticeship to be a gunsmith in a lot of ways. So like after the Civil War, there was a boom in the number of people actually manufacturing firearms, and you've got this large number of people who have this very specific skill set, and they've got no other outlet, so they just pour it into doing what they know. I think that might kind of tie into it a little bit too. I mean, we just went through the Red War. The city was shattered.
Yeah, supply and demand.
It kind of makes sense that there would be a surplus of gunsmiths.
Well, I mean, even Tess made a comment that she nearly picked up a gun.
Mm-hmm. Well, picked up and making one would be very different, because let's face it, she ain't doing anything important.
Yeah, let's
a gun, but essentially it was I was going to like beat them up, but then everybody they backed off because they were too scared. I mean, that's what that comment is.
Let's be honest, it was Claudia Black being typical her and being well, I was gonna do this thing, but let me sell you on why I didn't.
I love the fact that she voices Tess. Like, I
love
honest.
and hate it. Because,
right.
God,
well, yeah.
I could think of a more hated character in this game, more than the speaker. That's saying something
Rahul.
For me.
That's more than Rahul.
Well, Rahul gets an instant pass because I only have to go over him and be like, "Hey, this is legendary. Don't screw it up like you did before."
But to be fair,
no. Look, we talk about this idea of game mechanics being something that we can't always explain. That's a game mechanic that we're not going to try to explain. No, stop.
Do you remember the old Kodak cameras that you went? The disposables? Well, okay, so if you show up at the photomat with those and you give them like 5 cameras and you end up with like 19 photos of the inside of your pocket and your foot and the bottom of the pool, that's not on Kodak.
Wait.
You took pictures.
Wait. The bottom of a pool?
Yeah, the waterproof ones.
They made waterproof ones.
Yeah,
they did.
Oh my gosh, I love the waterproof ones.
Why was he taking his... Okay,
also, the takeaway you should get from this green is Beard has a bad eye.
Why is this Beard's bad eye and not Justin's bad eye? Because you're the one who's making this reference.
Photography runs in the family, thank you very much.
Well, it's not Justin's bad eye, because Justin's very artistically inclined, especially when it comes to macrame and photography. Okay.
Macrame?
Yeah, macaroni art. Isn't that what that is?
No.
I love how everyone's like, no. Okay, anyways, so what I was thinking before we go completely off the rails.
Creepers.
What I was actually thinking was, I think we've done a pretty fair shake on a basic summary of Gunsmiths, and I know that there is another item that is kind of on everyone's mind this week, which would be the DLC that just dropped. And I know that a lot of people, and Beard, I know I've seen you get a lot of questions. I think you've been doing a couple videos or something.
So many people.
Oh, do you make videes?
I don't know.
Videos?
I mean, I can't remember. I can't remember. And this is the age old jibe at you, but I can't remember which channel you're putting the videos on. But you know,
he's putting it on his macrame channel. The one he's putting it on.
But I wanted to see
it, but I'm vigorously smacking you in the head with my book right now.
I was just thinking, do you want to take a few minutes and kind of do a snap reaction to just the entire DLC, like from, you know, whatever stands out the most to you.
Mm-hmm.
So as the guest, Purple, do you want to go first? Take a couple minutes and let us know what your thoughts, because you just finished the campaign, right?
Well, so I actually played through it twice in kind of an odd order because I have a pact with my husband and our best friend that we play through all the campaigns together. And due to real life circumstance, my best friend couldn't be on Tuesday. So I did the first 2 missions on Tuesday, and then I replayed them with him on Wednesday. And then I played 3 and 4 on Thursday, and then I just replayed them with him again tonight. So kind of a weird thing, but I did manage to get through the story missions anyway. But no, I thought it was really great. I really like the story, and I think that I'm really excited to go off and explore more of the quests and adventures and things. That's what I got so excited about those in the last, since Destiny 2 came out.
Can I just say on that
so
point, girl, you don't have any idea whatsoever right now. It's that good.
I know. I'm so excited. I've only heard amazing things about all the tidbits of and things like that are out there. So I'm really looking forward to that. And my next task this weekend is to read through all the things we pulled off the API.
Oh my
it's
God.
so good!
I'm so excited.
I may have, I played through the campaign, put the campaign down, and immediately opened up Ishtar Collective and just started reading. Because that was my
I would have if I hadn't fallen asleep.
Yeah.
But yeah, for those of you who want to, if you go to ishtar-collective.net, there is a link for everything that got pulled from Warmind. If you go up to the top, it's under releases. It lists everything.
That's so nice now.
Yes, it's amazing.
So much more room for activities.
And everybody on the engineering people, Uni and Norman. Well, I didn't do the tech part. My job comes after theirs. So yeah, that's the next project that I'm excited about working on is doing all the summaries.
Awesome. And Green, what about you? Green? I know you had you were saying that you jumped through the campaign and then you've read most of the entries, right? Or you read the entries?
Right. I've read the entries. I haven't dissected them. I did a brief run, read through. That was my way of not playing the game and spending time with my wife. We were reading together. Little did she know I was still playing the game just via Ishtar Collective. But as far as the DLC, I know that there's some grumblings about things. I enjoyed the DLC. There are things that I think, there's always room for improvement, period. No matter what game it is. There's no perfect game, in my opinion. And as far as the Bungie doing a better job this DLC than they have in a long time, I wouldn't say this is the top DLC I've ever played from them, but this is definitely in I would say, top 3. I enjoyed this one a lot. I enjoyed the lore and everything getting pulled in. more so than a lot of other ones. And I know there's a lot of problems with some of the lore that got pulled in. I get that. I truly, truly get that.
It's only a problem if you make it one.
Perfect. Beard, what about you?
I think overall I enjoyed it. If you want the TLDR to the 5 pages that I have written up right now, that will probably release around the same time, if not sooner than what this chat will be. I think that overall it was very well done for being short. And to those that effectively kind of have said it is too short, remember a story in general can be received or delivered in either a long form or short form manner. It does not necessarily have to be something that is delivered in a long form manner. I know that we are setting a precedent, especially with DLC previously, that does end up stating how things need to be a little bit longer. If we look at like The Dark Below or House of Wolves, they are 10 or 20 step quest missions. These overall are systems that are now not being showcased too much. But most of the stuff that we're actually getting from this DLC is after the fact. It's stuff that Taken King had kind of done previously, where we ended up getting some quests after the fact, and then we ended up having some additional collectibles that kind of still brought us back in, and so on. These are the things that I thought really stood out to me about the DLC as a whole, and really kind of bring you back in to actually engage with the world. Because right now, I don't know what it says for the rest of the game, because I still enjoy going to like Io or Nessus, and I still like going to these planets or these moons by technicality. But Mars, I was a little on the reluctant side of going back to Mars. And I now find that it's actually the most filled and lively planet that we're now going to within Destiny 2. And again, I don't know what that says for the rest of the game, but to me, where I can still go to and enjoy myself on the other planets or moons, this, I feel like I want to go back to Mars, and I feel like I have a purpose for doing so. Additionally, the ending, many people actually have problems with the ending. I actually think that the ending is perfect. It actually does the thing that I've been asking for of Destiny 2 for a long time, which is stop finishing story sequences. Yeah. Because the Fallen at this point, we know for a fact, are kind of getting pushed back a little bit further than they need to be. The Cabal have their leadership basically cut at the knees at this point. We don't know who's in charge of them. Heck, a weapons dealer was the one in charge of the Red Legion at one point here.
Which, by the way, that's changing with the raid.
Right.
Stuff with the raid that dropped today has changed some of the Cabal leadership information we have.
Well, and additionally, we also have points that we need to bring up with those raids in said raid lair. But before I get into those, the Hive. We haven't heard really hide nor no pun intended there, hide nor hair of them. Basically, it is the biggest thing. Feels like they're starting to also get pushed back. We don't know too much about Savathun and the possibility of her being brought into it. And then lastly, with the Vex, we had a good majority of that stuff basically end with the destruction of Panoptis. I mean, you can argue, did it really, though? And the questions can continue from there, but I don't feel the Vex are quite as nasty as they used to be. So all 4 of the main races that I really had a problem with are now pushed to the side. Now I have a reason to get back into the game and actually fulfill that portion of being a warlock, of being a warrior scholar, and actually feel like I want to be a warrior instead of just looking into things on Ishtar Collective.
Can I wrap something back up just a tiny bit?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah.
I tweeted out, like, right after the DLC dropped and I finished playing it, that if you think the story missions is the DLC, you're missing out on the majority of it.
Yeah.
Like, the story missions are a good introduction to what Bungie has laid out in front of us. They're giving us an opportunity to search through the world again and find different secrets and mysteries, like solve mysteries. There's a new, like, the raid secrets guys. Just what are they called?
That's the raid secrets. Yeah, it's the sublore is raid secrets. They are going rabid right now.
Yeah, because there's like a little diagram thing inside of Rasputin, like the mainframe area, where we get the final the final talk from him at the end of the story missions, there's a little diagram that looks like a puzzle, and those guys are going crazy trying to figure it out. If you want the link to that, you can just
I'll put it in show notes.
Yay, that's good.
And additionally, just to kind of keep going with that point, the stuff that I mentioned and talked about is all prevalent to just the main campaign itself. The lore, I think, is great. The weapon changes are great. The sandbox changes are amazing.
Graviton Forfeit.
Oh my god, Graviton Forfeit and Crimson are the best things in the world.
Graviton
no
Lance.
Other weapons. I said Forfeit. Graviton Lance.
Sorry.
Good grief.
I said Forfeit first.
The Lance, yes. No, not the Forfeit.
I do my Graviton dance with my Graviton Lance. It's amazing.
Anyway, yeah, I would say that the lore is in a very good place. I would say that a lot of the collectibles and everything are very much there. Again, I have to read all the lore tabs to really know what's going on. There are those that are saying that it's not being respected right now. I would argue you need to go back and read through a good majority of what has already been posted. Because we already know that Grimoire is 100% being referenced once again.
Oh, yeah.
So, to my suggestion, before, and I will get on this soapbox once again, before you get into the arguments of it's a retcon, don't. Start doing some research, because you're probably going to find something that's going to stuff a sock in your mouth. End soapbox.
And I think we're going to do an episode on what retcons actually are.
A lot of people
gets thrown around a lot.
I know.
Also, why they're not always a negative thing.
Right.
They're,
like many people paint them to be terrible, but they can actually be awesome if they're done right.
And that's not even so. And Green is absolutely correct, because Beard and Justin are also on point with this. When you say retcon, this is like one of my biggest pet peeves, is when you say retcon, that there are actually, off the top of my head, I can think of 5 variations of a retcon. And it's not always, like, when people say retcon, they're talking about a very severe erasing of previous information. And yes, there is a version of retconning, which it stands for retroactive continuity. So, first off, let's just be clear here. The reason why retcons are done in a story setting is because they want to allow for continuity in the story going forward. It is not to break the continuity of a story. That's actually the exact opposite of the point of a retcon.
And it's not always to atone for lazy storytelling either.
It's usually, for the vast majority of retroactive continuity changes, it's usually actually to clarify and to make better. And it does. And so, but yeah, Green, I'll cut myself short, because I know Green and I have had conversations about that. And it's just from, and I'm sure Purple can weigh in on this one a little bit too, but from like a literary analysis point of view, it's very frustrating, because there's not been any severe retcons that I can think of off the top of my head. Like there might have been 1 or 2, but everything, and we kind of talked about this last episode with Purple, with the Warmind piece, remember? And Beard made an excellent point. It's like, if you read it in a different tone, you can have the same card tell you a completely different message. That's the problem of having text.
Which was one of the first conversations that I know that I joined in with FFC, and it was on the stuff with Dredge and Yor. And I fought vehemently to end up saying, no, if you read it differently, then you end up getting a different language skirt out of that entire card. And then that evolved the conversation, which was wonderful.
I think the biggest problem that people in general have, that the people who are yelling retcon is basically, I think I talked about this last week, but I know I've talked about it several places. Like, we have to, you have to open your mind up to more than one interpretation of a text.
Yes.
Or of a conversation, or a story mission, or whatever it is, and try to think, okay, what happens? How can I interpret this card now that I have new information? like with the Dredge and Yor thing, right? So we had certain information we assumed was one way, we as a community, and then we get a new piece of information that seems at first blush to contradict it. Mm-hmm. Okay, well, so instead of saying, well, they changed it, mm-hmm. let's first stop and think, well, can we read the original information in a different way that would make it not a change? Right. And if we can do that, okay, well, then maybe we just read it wrong the first time, or we interpreted it differently than intended, or whatever. And if you can't, then you can start thinking, okay, well, maybe they did change something. Let's go down that line a little bit further.
Right.
But often, overwhelmingly often, if you just think about it in a different way than you originally interpreted it, then it usually fits just fine.
Yeah. And Justin, real quick before I just to close off real quick, and I'm going to let you go get back on topic for the review. Purple, real quick. The only thing that I can think of that would be a legit retcon that Bungie has done is, and this is only, and honestly, this is only because of the historical records that Ishtar keeps that I'm aware of this happening, is on a couple of the pieces they have gone back and they have changed some stuff. But they were done, if you look at the time of the change, as far as I'm aware, they were all done prior to those items being released to the public. So then you can argue
the raid items, I think,
right? It was the raid items. I was really excited about reading about Feltrock and Sekris and Nor, and then lo and behold, they come out, and I was like, "Who the hell is the Fulminator? Like, what is this?" Well, which is fine. It's fine.
Did the video?
I know. I was so excited, and I'm like, "Oh no!" But if you look at the release of that equipment and then the date that they edited the API. The edits were before they released it. So then you have to be also cognizant of, when were these actually, quote unquote, introduced to the canon? Because there is a degree with storytelling of editing. And, you want to make sure that those edits are congruent and also build the continuity. And if they were done prior to being released to the general public, I would actually argue that that's not retconning. That's editorial jurisdiction. Yeah,
I completely agree. Right. I mean,
Absolutely.
We're in a unique position here with the API because of the way, like the nature of the video games that we're playing. Right. You wouldn't have this problem with a book, right? Because any editorial choices that they would, like any of those kind of changes that might be last minute, like it got uploaded to the API and then they changed it, that would be like the final edit of your book.
Mm-hmm.
Right. This doesn't work. Like before publishing, like the public wouldn't ever know unless unless it was a bizarre circumstance.
Unless they had an API of the editorial comments, which is which is what we have. But I mean, but my point there is just like, I've seen a couple people bring that up as a retcon, and I'm like, whoa, that's
no.
You gotta. I mean, I will split the hair. There is like, that's not a retcon. That's a we don't want to tell people about that just yet. Even though people
we
know about
our mind
it, right?
Or whatever.
But
and that could have been something that they changed like how many months ago, and then they ended up instituting it like the day before.
Right. Yeah.
The API would have been told something before the raid patch was gone, or the hotfix was pushed out. Meanwhile, we had different information before that unlocked. We don't know how the coding would have ended up working out besides. So
well, I mean,
we can't.
I remember Purple and I freaking out because the dawning cards.
Right.
We got the dawning cards as part of, what was it, the Taken King like initial release. We got these like 6 files that were like the dawning. I'm like, what is this?
What is that?
And Purple's like, I don't know, but what do you think? And I remember having like a 15-minute freak out about this, and we didn't get that released until what, 2-3 months later. I mean, it was pretty close. It was because it was Taken King was what, September, and then the dawning was the end of December.
Christmas. Yeah, it was like Christmas.
So I mean, it wasn't but I mean, that's a situation in which, like, And those items actually also, I think in hindsight, I think those actually changed a little bit as well. But yes,
have been cards removed. Like there have been items removed from the game. Entirely. Besides those that
for reality reasons, yes.
Right.
A couple come to mind, yeah. Mm-hmm. And those I don't think I've ever seen anyone actually reference those, because those are like 100% everyone kind of understands. Nope. There's a legit reason those got pulled. And honestly, I don't think any of the ones that have gotten pulled had a really significant impact on anything.
I don't remember if they had any lore that was any significance. I think it was just because of the design and everything.
The one that I'm thinking, are you thinking of the arm? Mm-hmm. The armlet? Yeah, that one, I don't even know if the flavor text really had anything on it.
No, that was just purely design.
Okay, so yes, we need to have an episode on this, because I think this is a very, very, very good conversation to have. But in the sake of getting back on topic, Justin, what's been your feedback on the DLC so far?
My feedback on the DLC, I've been pretty well happy with it. Maybe this might have something to do with me having stepped away from the game for a little bit, but I think the story missions, when you do them by yourself, are challenging enough.
Yeah.
That I think there's been a significant step forward in how challenging story missions don't feel like a joke. I can remember.
Neither apparently does the raid.
Yeah. Well, I can distinctly remember running whatever like that second story mission is, and a couple phalanxes come down you have to kill in a row. And I can remember like the second one killed me 2 times, and I was like, okay, like it's real. Like I don't need to be screwing around. Like I think I was watching a YouTube video and playing at the same time, and I was like, okay, it was something off of Beard's macrame channel, and it was anyways. But I was just like, okay, well this is a little harder than a normal Destiny standard story mission, and the main thing that will revive my playing of the game is to not feel futile in terms of rewards, because I kind of stepped away from the game with an awful lot of exotics still to play for. But after like my 13th pair of Aeon Swift gauntlets, it's not that I didn't want to play either, because things were just nuts, work wise and everything else. But it was just like, I felt like I was chasing stuff, but I just didn't feel like I was close to getting. Whereas in terms of rewards, and this is just after a few days of playing this, after I play, like when I put in an hour of play, I feel very well rewarded. Parts of me really wish that the Zol fight had a little bit more theatricality to it, but that's nitpicking. I mean,
did anyone else notice that when you hit Zol in the middle part with the Valkyrie, then there were like 6 holes that open up on the side?
Yeah. No, I couldn't hit him with a Valkyrie. But
Justin's instance of Zol died of boredom.
No, I ended up to be honest, I ended up killing Zol from two causes of death: boredom and vortex grenades. Had to put Mobius quiver on because I couldn't even handle my tether. Yeah. But yes,
you just have to hold the trigger down like you do with the rocket launcher, and it'll shoot straight.
Well, I figured that out at the end.
Yeah. Okay.
After Zol turned into dust, like so many of my favorite heroes of late.
Oh, rip.
Yeah. I don't feel so good, Mr. Toland. So yeah. I'm happy with it so far. If the loot structure and kind of the not so much the loot structure. I don't want to sound like I need to be given a cookie every time I play, but if kind of the reward for time invested, be it experience or a tangible, well, a virtually tangible object in game or whatever, as long as you get that rewarded feeling after playing for a couple hours, I think there's going to be good things, because to be honest, everyone that's salty about the story not being long enough, I mean, if you've been around since the launch of the original game, the story's always been just a tiny piece of the game. I mean,
can I just say that as far as like what you're asking for, I was listening to the raid race today.
Mm-hmm.
There are emotes specific to the raid.
Nice.
The callous one.
I saw that one.
Yeah.
That one
fan requested raid specific emotes.
Like you're going to be able to
in case you were thinking that no one was listening to us.
Right.
Well, and it was just so funny because Deej's post was and this is what happens when we listen to you. Every one of the developers at Bungie were posting like the best GIFs. It was so funny. I'm like, I haven't even watched the videos, but apparently, difficulty was amped up a bit, to say the least.
Like listening to Gathalion and them try to figure this out. It's like, and I could not believe, and I sent you this, I could not believe I saw someone post this, because what have we been talking about since the beginning of raids in Destiny? Make it not just about shooting.
Yep. Oh, yeah. Well, and then someone, I think you were the one that posted the...
I sent it to you.
Someone was like... I'm like, oh my gosh, they can't win.
Shooting in this one.
I was like, wait,
win. Wait, just wait. Just to shh.
Yeah, really.
Just stop.
Go play Mega Man.
Well, and to that credit as well, just to bring this topic up real fast about like Eververse as well, the loot boxes have actually, or the engrams that they supply are actually giving more loot from them.
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
for
they
each
are.
one.
And they've slimmed down Eververse as well, as from what I could read, or what I was reading.
They've actually thrown a lot more of that out into the actual game world, and they intend on using it more for like faction rallies and Iron Banner, as well as also events that are probably going to be coming up. So that's going away. They've also introduced the Prismatic Matrix, which cuts down on some of the guesswork in terms of what you're actually getting from those loot boxes. Mm-hmm. So quite frankly, what they are doing is taking Eververse and pulling it away a little bit more. As a business, I don't expect them to get rid of it fully.
Oh, yeah.
That being said, it is definitely much better than it was. My thoughts, of course, on the practice as a whole being, neither here nor there, but overall it is a much better fixture than it had been.
Nah. If you want to buy something, sell it to them, is what I say, unless it's like crack cocaine.
To be fair, though... Oh, sorry, go for it, Beer.
Yeah. And that's why I think like the Prismatic Matrix is a perfect idea. Yeah. Because if you wait for that particular week for something to pop up and you've got the duplication protection that's invested into the system already, then at that point you've just went a couple different steps to ensure that you are making the consumer a little happier with the way that box is working. 5 pulls on there is $10. And to me, if you can end up getting it, that's basically one half of the Matrix. Mm-hmm. So if you're looking at it from that staple and there is something you want from there, I don't think that $10 is that bad for a cosmetic item that you're looking at to begin with. Yeah. But that's me personally.
It better be one hell of cosmetic item.
Well, and we're all going to look at that stuff at a different angle, right? Yeah. Like, that's the brilliance of it, all the same.
You can still earn those.
But I don't have to buy it.
You don't have to buy it to get a pull.
Exactly.
You'll get a 1 in 10 chance. You can up your chances by getting more pulls. That's the only thing. Is you're just playing RNG a little bit tighter.
Mm-hmm. Which is what a lot of us have argued for. I know you're right. I mean, that's the thing is like and I think it's a perfect answer. I know a couple people haven't been the biggest fan of it, but I think it allows, quite honestly, I think Green, you hit it on the head there. I think it allows the company, because remember again, going back here, we're talking about a business. Their bottom line is making money. Let's just be honest there. It allows them to continue having that incentive, but it also gives us a bit more control on, having a clear expectation. And Beard, I know we've talked about the difference between the Eastern and the Western, gaming industry's transparency laws. Yes. I think that kind of brings it more in line with each other with kind of, what that transparency expectation, and having an expectation that I'm not going to have to drop, I remember, what was it, Festival of the Lost, people dropping like $300 to $500 to get that stupid wolf head.
Mask?
No, it was the wolf head one that everyone was like losing their minds over. And I know, because wasn't it T-Rex that put like $300 or $400, I think, that he put down trying to get it. And it was just, that's the dark side of RNG. So I think it's a good medium.
And the realism is streamers, a lot of times they put a lot of money in it.
Right. No, right.
That's not necessarily something everybody can do, and that's not something everybody should do.
No, I 100% agree. Right.
Or that you should want to. Well, I'm not going to tell people what they should want to do, but
streamers do that as an incentive a lot of times. They turn it into a video. And they budget for it. It's part of their business.
Right. Again, it's a business. It's a business decision.
Come spend some time with me. We can find ways to spend that $300. And we will have fun.
To circle back to the raid layer, it looks like the world's first team completed it in a little bit over 6.5 hours. Mm-hmm.
That's awesome.
For a raid layer.
Not for a raid.
Not for a raid.
A struggle bus, from what I could hear, and I only listened for about an hour and a half of Gathalions.
Yep,
that is amazing. Who got world's first, by the way?
The same team that has
red something.
Redeem.
Yeah.
And then Gathalion's team got second.
Trying to close off the DLC review. To be honest, I was telling Green this earlier today. I have not been inclined as much to play as I have been in the last couple days because of how much fun I've had with patrols. I am a huge, most people who have listened to us for a while know that I'm a pretty big solo player. I play pretty much predominantly just by myself because I do really random things. I don't really follow any particular thing or any particular story progression. And so doing exactly what all you guys have been saying, the story missions are not super difficult, but they're not super fall asleep easy. Especially if you're playing solo, that was nice. And they were quick. And that actually for me is a bonus. I actually prefer to have story missions. I think, what did we have? 6 story missions? 7? Did we have 8? Did we have 8?
I don't think we got a full 8.
I don't think we got a full. Maybe 5. I think we may have gotten
together. 5. They were also weaved together a little bit.
Right. And and I was talking about this a little bit before stream. The only complaint that I've had, is there is a small hiccup in the story that explains how we learn about Zol. And that's really, honestly, of all the things for me to complain about, it's not that big of a deal. It's more of, I think there was just a small stutter step in the way that they connect 2 of the missions in the beginning of the DLC, because we basically it's at the point right after you find Rasputin, and then the very next mission, it feels like we kind of get thrown into a middle of a conversation, but we never got the introduction. It honestly feels like I'm talking to my 5-year-old, which, anyone who's dealt with 5-year-olds know that they tell stories, but they don't tell them necessarily in the order of how you should tell a story. Sometimes you'll get a conclusion, then an introduction, and then a middle, and then sometimes you get an introduction, a conclusion, and then the middle. but it really honestly
sometimes
wasn't.
You'll make it 2 out of 3.
Yeah, sometimes you don't even get the ending, and those are the most infuriating ones because I'm like, I've stuck with you for the last 2 hours to hear this ending, and what happened? What happened to Spot the dog who got dirty and then was actually a dog? Anyways. So, and that's not the case. Like, we definitely got a conclusion. I know a lot of people are divided on the conclusion that we were given. I think it makes sense. I know there is a really good analysis of kind of the narrative style of Destiny 2, and the individual who wrote it. I'll put it in the story or show notes as well. The individual who wrote it was not a fan of the narrative style of Destiny 2 in general, I think. But
he makes some really good points.
I was just about to say, it regardless, even though I don't necessarily agree with his opinion on the conclusion, I also do note that they make a really good argument. And actually, I think I agree with a couple of the points that they make. There are a few things that I think could have been done better from a storytelling perspective. But like Green said at the top of this whole little segment, I would think that about any game I pick up. I mean, that's just what I do when I read a story. I think about that when I read books. I mean, like, I wouldn't have done that, but that's nothing anyway. But overall, I mean, like the patrol, I have an inclination to get back in the game. Like, I have a desire to want to play.
The game is high praise.
Yeah, well, okay, right. I mean, like, the thing is like, like Justin was saying, work has been absolutely insane for me. And so I don't have the free, like, a lot of free time and to play. And I was on last week, I was on DTR right before our show, and I made the comment, I have not played a video game in probably close to 2 months. Just because of my free time, I don't have it. I am actually inclined now with Warmind to put Green's comment on that one in context. I am inclined to sacrifice the little sleep that I do have to play Warmind because I want to play it. I actually am having fun. This is the grind. This is the level of grind. This is the level of fun and patrols that I remember from the vanilla Destiny that I absolutely loved.
The excitement to see what's left, what's new, because
right, and the challenge, the challenge to, I mean, and to be fair, also, I was not a fan of Rise of Iron. It took me a while to warm up to Taken King, but once I got into Taken, well, actually, let's be honest, once I got Night Stalker, I was hooked. But the way that they have balanced the collectibles, with the music boxes and the data points and the data pads. I think for me personally, I am a really big fan of it. I absolutely love it. That is not to say, of course, like I said earlier, that I wouldn't have changed some things. I definitely have a few opinions about some things that need to be changed. But from a game mechanic standpoint, I'm having a blast with it.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Datto's team just got done with the raid lair. I think they said, 12 and a half hours? 12 and a half hours.
Yeah. I'm glad Bungie's not pulling punches on this one.
Yeah.
I'm going to say they're going the complete opposite of how it's been. You could kind of see. And it's just like, well, this is the stuff that you've been asking for. We're going to put it in like high form, and we're not going to hold back on it. Mm-hmm. And if this is too much grind for you, then 1, you asked for it, and 2, this is the kind of stuff that's going to keep you around to play. So what do you want?
This is what I want. I mean, this is the thing is like, this is and sorry to jump in there, but this is something that I've been waiting for Bungie to put their foot down and be like, this is the content that we are going to make. I understand from a business development standpoint, listening to your feedback, but the danger there is honestly the not deciding which way to go. So I'm so excited for that.
Well, there's so many different forms of in-game content right now that there's not anything wrong with there being something so hard that a large segment of the
right, and that's actually the look at narrative analysis. That's actually the point that I agree with the original poster. He or she. I always feel weird on Reddit. I always associate he. I always feel like I'm gonna offend somebody. They make a point that they say every DLC doesn't need a big bad that we have to kill to stop whatever threat. Every DLC doesn't need to be focused on stopping some big threat. Like. And I agree with that. Like there doesn't need to be this like major, like boss fights, yes, but it doesn't need to culminate in us quote unquote killing. They use Taken King as the prime example there, because with the Taken King, at the end of the campaign, we quote killed Oryx, but did we? Because then, that was the entire point of King's Fall, is like, we have to go further. We have to push further into it. We have to, actually end the threat. We just stopped the threat, but we didn't actually end it. And that's a point that I agree completely with. I'm like, that's what, for me at least, what engages me as far as coming back, right? Is because that's the cliffhanger at the end of the season, if that makes sense to people. So with that being said, do you guys want to jump into shoutouts?
Sure.
So, and I know, just for the record, Green did have to take off. She has some family in town, so she had to take care of them. So she had to leave a little bit early for us. Purple.
Because we yak too much.
Yeah,
Basically.
What? We get on tangents? That never happens.
Hang on. Lore community tangents? Never. I'm sorry, Purple. Your turn for shoutouts.
Well, my Ishtar crew is getting bigger and bigger, and I'm so happy to have all of them. We now have Jazzy in charge of transcripts. Yeah, I'm super excited. And as always, I think I mentioned earlier, if you want to read about Warmind stuff, or if you want to read a backlogs of anything about the lore, you can go to ishtar-collective.net. You want to read Warmind/releases/Warmind.
Cool. Well, and I know we always appreciate having you on. Beard, what do you got for us?
Dear Bungie, thanks for delivering. At least on an overall idea. There's been a lot that's been going on lately, of course, and I know I have been one of the biggest critics and will continue to be one of your biggest critics. But to that point, it is because I absolutely love this universe and I hope to see it succeed. So my biggest shout out honestly goes to them, because without them we wouldn't have had Warmind, and I wouldn't have been able to know if my continued positive feeling that I've been feeling ever since those web lore drops happened 2 weeks ago was going to be a thing as we progressed. So a huge shout to them for doing what I thought was going to be impossible and like bringing me back into the game to actually play it before September. I'm still all I was thinking about today while I was like doing my due diligence with getting the script together, with thinking about it a little bit more, was I want to get on and I want to play. I want to get Sleeper. I want to get all these other things that are out there right now. Like, I want to start building these weapons more. I want to get into more of the scans, just all of it. That is all I could think about while I was doing that. And I have not felt that way in Destiny for a long time. So, if I can harp on that review any bit more, watch for that one soon, or it's already out. I don't know which will happen. Further, a massive shout out to everybody over on the Reddit community who is poking holes into these theories and ideas. I love when I start to see the mystery kind of pop up again, because it's a welcome sight instead of the continued, well, this game isn't that good kind of mentality. And it's nice to see some different things that are kind of getting thrown into the conversation. It is becoming more about critique again than it is just voicing to be angry, and I like that, because that's the direction that it should be going for a long time. So, Thank you, Reddit, for also doing that, because you've sparked me to say, yeah, okay, things are going in a positive direction, whether anybody wants to actually denote that or not. But I think that's where I'm going to leave it, actually. It's more community-based shout-outs than anything, but that's basically what it's been this week, has been just a lot of community focus. It's been awesome to see all communities kind of coming together with either equal interpretations of what I thought was going on, or some slight derivations thereof. But it's just been welcome to see everybody more in positive atmosphere.
Awesome. And Justin, what about you?
Just big shout out to our wonderful guest, Ms. PurpleChimera, for joining us 2 weeks in a row. 2 weeks in a row. She didn't feel like she got a full dose of Justin last week because I came down with a nasty case of narcolepsy. But so she just had to come back for more. So I really do appreciate you joining us. It's always a pleasure.
Thank you.
But yeah, and again, to kind of echo what Beard said, just not so many words. Thank you, Bungie, for not only for getting me back playing, because that would be one thing, but I'm not a solo player. Misery loves company, and to get the people that I play with back playing too, like that's important. So, I really enjoy all the hype and excitement and exuberance, and it's good to look forward to something. And I underestimated how much I needed shooting people in my life. So and then my last shout out is to Beard's Macrame channel. It's positively laced with good content. It's a real tight knit group over there in the comment section.
Is that what you want to call it? Oh,
mic drop.
Look, the joke in general for that is YouTube doesn't have, generally speaking, good comments section. Just for the record,
yeah,
I'm not saying that my community and my channel has awful comment sections, because it doesn't.
Yeah.
Aside from like 2 videos, maybe, but I brought that on myself.
I just think your channel is not like the others.
I love how everyone's just like, we don't know how to take that. And on that note, I'm going to steal the mic from Justin. Just a reminder, next week we are going to be talking about the Guardian potential. That is especially in regards to, the game world after the Traveler has awoken. And as part of that, the community question that we're kind of giving everyone is, what do you think the next challenge for our Guardians to overcome will be? And I believe Green, said that she was going to try to get that scheduled to go up early next week, and probably maybe Tuesday, Wednesday, maybe. I don't know. We'll just keep an eye out on Green's Twitter for that. She usually cross post it with the Focus Fire Twitter. Other than that, just a big thank you to, like Beard and everyone here has said, the community. It's nice seeing the positive and constructive criticism. Negative criticism is useless in my mind, because there's no point to it. But constructive criticism is amazing to read, because even if I disagree with you, like I said with this narrative analysis, I disagree with a lot of what's being said as far as like the conclusion. I agree a lot with the points. I just have a different opinion about how they connect, and that's really where conversations really can start and really prosper, is through that. So I'm really excited to see the Destiny community kind of taking that back over and, really kind of going with that, like Beard was saying. But other than that, let's run through some outro notes real quick, and I think we'll probably stay around for a little bit of an after show. With that, we'll begin to wrap the chat up. Thank you again to those over on Twitch for coming to spend your evening with us. If you'd like to join us for the live streaming of the episodes, please be sure to give us a follow over on twitch.tv/FocusFireChat. Links to our episode archives can be found at www.focusfirechat.com. Thank you again, Purple, for joining in on the conversation. I'll be sure to get your contact information up in our show notes for anyone who wants to continue chatting with you. Please be sure to email us at focusfirechat@gmail.com with any comments or questions for our team concerning the podcast, and let us know how we're doing by giving us some feedbacks and a rating over on iTunes as well. Also, be sure to check out all of our amazing partner podcasts within the Guardian Radio Network over on theguardiansofdestiny.com. So until next time, focus your fire and may your light shine bright.